A lion at Oxford. One aberrant day at Oxford, a lion benign sauntered down the pavement in a manner fine. A man cried out in terror and surprise.
Okay, today we have a very special guest, Gustavs, who is a 12-year-old boy, and he is the youngest interviewee in Voices from Oxford history. Gustavs, have you watched any programs on Voices from Oxford?
Yes, I have. I watched, you interviewed my father.
Yeah.
And I also watched the interview with Boris Johnson.
Okay, first of all, could you tell us about your impression?
Yes, I found it was quite interesting, and the interviews were quite well done, and I thought I learned quite a lot about both the people and also what they talked about.
Well, thank you so much for sending us your email, and we are really delighted, and thank you for your precious time today. And we really enjoyed reading your poem. Could you tell us what your poem is about?
Well, on the kind of outside, the idea is that the lion arrives at Oxford, and soon he gets into Balliol and becomes Prime Minister eventually. But when you think about it and read about it more, you can see that there are several themes embedded into the poem, such as a theme of trust, where you can see the fellow's philosophy of how he shows where he trusts. And then you can also see several other themes in the poem.
Obviously, it sounds like you learned about Balliol, and also have you learned about modern poetry at school?
Well, at school we haven't done much modern poetry, but we've done quite classic poetry.
So what's the difference between modern poetry and classic poetry?
Modern
Obviously
poetry,
rhyming, yeah?
Yes, modern poetry is usually more free.
Yeah, like
and
yours,
yes,
yeah?
Well, mine is, my teacher actually thought that mine was more like the classic poetry.
Really? Oh.
Yes, but modern poetry is more free.
Right.
But classic poetry is more restricted. So my poem is slightly a kind of a mix of the two.
Right.
Where I have a different kind of rhythm, but I also have the rhymes on every line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how long did it take you to write that poem?
Well, I didn't write it in one go, but in total it took me a few days. I think 2 or 3 days.
What inspired you to write the poem?
Well, firstly, I visited Balliol prior to writing the poem.
Really?
And I found it very interesting, and I got inspired. And also, I was thinking about these themes and ideas, and I felt, well, it would be interesting to put the two together.
Have you written any other poems?
Well, in my collection of poems, there are about 100 in English and Latvian mainly.
100?
Yes, I've written about 100. Recently, they've been improving.
Wow!
So, yes.
When did you start writing?
When I was 4, I started writing short rhymes.
When you were 4?
But when I was
Genius.
7, but when I was 7, I only really started writing more serious.
Is that your hobby, writing poems?
Yes, I find I quite enjoy it. It's a way to express my thoughts in a more original way, through a different perspective.
When you showed your first poem to your parents, how did they react?
I can't quite remember my first poem, but my parents have always been very positive and encouraging about my poetry, whilst also saying, of course, when they find something is less positive and something that can be improved.
So among teachers, anyone supervises you about your poems?
Well, I write my poems, but I sometimes show them to my teachers when I have finished. But well, most of them I I write completely alone, and I don't show them to anyone until I've finished.
Really?
But sometimes,
You haven't showed you haven't shown your parents either.
yes, sometimes I like to finish the poem and then show it as a complete poem.
Wow.
Sometimes I like to show extracts, and that's rarer.
You're so clever.
Thank you.
So, what's your future? What's your plan for the future then?
Well, I think I'll continue writing poems because I thoroughly enjoy doing so. But I think that perhaps it might not be my main profession because I also enjoy doing a lot of other things,
What are
such
they?
as science and
Oh, wow.
different subjects like that. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do in the future, but I still have quite a few options and quite a bit of time to decide.
Okay. Do you have any questions about Voices from Oxford?
Well, I find it quite interesting how you interview them.
All right.
And what makes you decide on the questions you're going to ask? And
Yeah, the questions I asked you.
yes,
Yeah, because I was very impressed with your poem when I first read it, your poem.
yes,
And then also later I realized that you are only 12 years old.
13
And,
tomorrow.
13 tomorrow. And then at the moment, Voices from Oxford, we are making every effort to attract more young people's attention. And you are the youngest.
Proud to be the youngest.
You are the youngest boy. So you can spread the word more to your friends.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed talking to you.
I enjoyed it too.
Yeah.